Continuing on the agenda is the program updates. And the first one we have is Sally Spencer's report on the adoption and sales. We have a portion in our books here that gives an update, and she has some slides.
All right, are we ready to roll? I first have an announcement, and this is for the public and for the advisory board. If any of you parked in the hotel here, we have validation coupons at the registration desk right in the back that will give you a discount on your parking. So make sure you stop by and pick them up on your way out, and you'll have a cheaper parking day. So that's a good thing. All right, Wild Horse Burro adoptions and sales. In FY 2010, we adopted 3,074 animals, and we sold 545 animals. And as Dean has said, you know, our adoptions, actually, we were about at 3,500 animals, and so that's quite low in comparison to years past. So the adoption and the sale market are both down. Are there any questions on 2010 or? Boyd?
On those 545 animals that were sold, were they in large bunches, ones and twos? What kind of numbers were they?
It was a mix. We had some that where we would sell 20 or more, and we will deliver to people's homes if they buy 20 or more animals, or or a full load. So we had some that were full loads. Others were in ones and twos and fives and sixes. So it just depended. We also had some of the horses that were sold from the over the internet that were sell eligible. So we had a nice mix.
Well, again, I just wanted to commend not only Arizona, but Colorado, Idaho, Oregon, and Wyoming were the other states that did meet their target, which is really important because, you know, we need to keep the adoption rate up as best possible.
Absolutely. All right, in FY 2011, and this is as of February 25th, 2011, we've adopted 869 animals, and we've sold 273. We are just about on par with last year's at this same time. So it looks like if things continue, we'll have about the same numbers, about the 3,500, which again isn't is down compared to everything else. And for the those animals that have been sold this year, it's the same thing. There's been some where people have gotten a full load of horses, but a lot of them have been ones and twos and threes and fours. And we will continue, you know, to do adoptions and try to find homes for the animals. Any question on just the numbers in general? We have 74 adoption events that are scheduled throughout the rest of FY 2011. And these include the satellite adoption events where we go to different locations around the United States and we bring the horses to those locations. We have adoption events where you can go to our facilities and adopt. We have adoption events at the various prison training programs, which are in Colorado, Nevada, Wyoming, Mississippi, Kansas, and Nevada. So you can go there. They'll have adoptions throughout the year for the trained animals. We also then, this includes adoptions for trainer incentive programs. Some of the trainers will do like youth and yearling programs. And then also this includes some of the extreme Mustang makeovers. One of the questions that I've gotten recently has to do with when somebody purchases a horse about the sale requirements. And the requirements haven't changed since the sale law came into effect. And the main things is that you need to provide a good home for the animals. You need control of the land. Either you own the land or lease it, or you know who owns the land or leases the land and they want the horses there. So you have to have, somebody has to have control of the land. You need to have fences that are going to keep the animals safe, so you can't just let them wander wherever they would, just like a domestic horse. You have to keep them safe. And you need food and you need water. So I don't know why all of a sudden this became an issue, but it has. And those are the main requirements. Some of the customer service things that we've been able to do, if people call up and they want to adopt a horse, or they want information about an adoption by them, or to purchase an animal, or to have a freeze mark of their animal read, or anything that has to do with the animals, or they have questions about the gathers, or questions about how BLM does our business, they can call our 800 number, the 8664 Mustangs. They can send an email to wildhorse@blm.gov. And if you send an email, what's really good to do in the subject line is to say adoption information, or sell information, or gather question, just so we'll be able to get to them quickly, because a lot of them may not have anything in them, and we get a lot of emails to those locations. If people are interested in joining a good community where they can get positive adoption stories and find out what other adopters are doing, they can join our Facebook page. I believe we have over 25,000 friends, so it's alive and growing. You also can watch some of our videos that have been made on YouTube, and it'll tell kind of why gathers need to occur, and just adopter stories, and a variety of things of that nature. And also, just to name a few of the adoption successes that we have, because even though we keep saying our adoption numbers are down, there still are some very good adoption stories that are out there, and adoption successes. The U.S. Border Patrol, they've adopted 91 Mustangs, and they plan to adopt an additional 85 this year. And they really, really, really love the Mustangs to patrol the northern and the southern borders, because they're so sure-footed. And also, some of the guys kind of like it because they like the idea of criminals training Mustangs for law enforcement. So that makes them smile. But I mean, they do such a great job, and it's wonderful to see that happening. And those Mustangs, all the ones that the Border Patrol has, they were trained at the Canyon City, Colorado prison. And so they're basically, all their adoptions now are going towards the Border Patrol. So there really is a need for trained Mustangs, and we're doing what we can to get more trained Mustangs out there. Also recently, there was an adoption at the Carson City prison in Nevada, and they were able to have 16 Mustangs available. 16 of them were adopted, and 2 of them were actually adopted by one of the actors from Brothers and Sisters. So we're starting to hit Hollywood, which is always a good thing. But there was a lot of volunteers at that, with that event, and Willis Lamb and different folks who get involved with helping with the Carson City prison program, and so that's very good. And one of the other successes that we always have is with the Mustang Heritage Foundation. So is there any other questions for me right now?
I had one question regarding, I think that there may be other opportunities for inmate gentling programs. In order to get them off the ground, what is the procedure? Who do they need to talk to?
They need to contact our office, so they could contact me directly. And some of the key things to think about with the prison programs, and I mean, they're a wonderful way to get animals gentled, but the prison needs to provide the infrastructure. So they need to provide the land, the pens, the prisoners, of course, the inmates, and we will provide the horses, and we will pay.
Is there a specific RFP that they have to, or contractual
well,
obligation?
it's an interagency agreement.
Okay,
that, or,
so that's,
yeah.
Sally's the person that folks need to go to.
Right, and so if they get to me, then we'll get them to the right folks. And I mean, we'd love to work with any state or that has the ability. In fact, I just got an email from somebody in I think it's in Wisconsin, who's interested in seeing if they can get something going. So it's a great way, and through the prison programs, it's unfortunate that we can only train about 500 horses a year, just because of the limited. Well, there's a limited number of inmates. There's also a high turnover because it's minimum security for the inmates who do train, and and they can do like 15 to 20 horses quarterly. So that's about all they can handle. So the more we could get in place, the more trained animals that we could get. Janet, you had a question?
Yes, I did. Sally, I'm wondering if you have any data with you today that tells us the cost of adoptions, like per head, through BLM or Mustang Heritage Foundation or the prisons, just so if you break it down according to these categories, what it costs per head based on that different type of organization.
Right, I have that back at my office, but Dean, do you know off the top of your head?
I think it's about $2,300 per animal, but again, you're probably suggesting that we put that
Mhm.
information in our budget presentation with units and unit cost.
And we can do that. I mean, we have that breakdown, so we can make that available.
Well, and your emphasis, Janet, is on the prison, or the inmate gentling program versus Heritage Foundation versus in-house BLM.
Yeah.
Right.
That type of thing.
It'd be helpful to see that comparison, especially as you all are convening a team now to look at adoptions and maybe have more of it done by people who are really good at it.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
That's a great idea.
I think to have that summary available, especially as the team begins its work, is important.
And we can do that, absolutely. All right, and now, I'm sorry, Renee?
Sorry, Sam. What was the outcome of the National Adoption Day?
Actually, the National Adoption Day was very successful. We had, oh gosh, that was like a year ago. We had over, I think like 500 animals that were adopted during that month. Most of the adoptions were done at BLM facilities. There were a few that were done with groups, but what most of the groups did is they were able to promote the adoptions because they just didn't have the ability to handle the ungentled animals. But there also were quite a few tip trainers that stepped up and had events during the month of September, and it was a good event just for the whole month. And it's basically morphed more into a national wild horse adoption awareness campaign instead of just a set time for adoptions. And so I think, Patty, Patty has some more information on that because there was some additional money left over from that actual event. So Patty will be able to give you more details on future plans, but they're very exciting.
So how many horses do you think were adopted out as a result of that whole exposure process?
Well, I can tell you for sure that there were 500 animals that would not have been adopted that were, because we had a special emphasis where we added additional adoptions for that time period.
Okay.
And then as far as that, I'm sure there were others just because of the excitement of just the National Adoption Day. And with this awareness coming up, that'll be coming up this spring, I think there's an opportunity to get a lot more people aware that if they have a place in their home and in their heart for another horse, or for a horse, or a burro, but mostly horses, that a wild horse would be the one to get.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, I'd like to turn it over to Patty Colbert with the Mustang Heritage Foundation to give you an update of what else is going on.
But I can share with Paul.
Boyd and Tim.
Hi, everybody in audience. How many of you in the audience actually adopted and own and have a Mustang as a riding partner? Not in my mission, but I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to go really quick because I know that you have a really full agenda. The brand Extreme Mustang Makeover is one of the 3 brands that we operate under, and it's been very successful. As you see up here, it's a partnership between the Bureau of Land Management and the Mustang Heritage Foundation. What everyone needs to know is we just don't get a big check. That's not the way it works. We receive federal grants, and until we prove up that those horses have been adopted, then we can pull the money down after we prove up those adoptions. So it is nothing up front. It is all we have to work and achieve those adoptions in order to be funded. I wanted to introduce to you today, too, our president, Paula Carr, is here from Tennessee, and John Fallon came in from Nevada, and you'll be hearing from them tomorrow. Next slide, please. The Extreme Mustang Makeover is kind of a keynote event because it draws publicity. It draws folks to see the value and quality of these animals. We've had 23 events in 11 states, which we credit with almost 1,000 adoptions. Save a Horse, Adopt a Legend is what we ride under. If the next one, please. The biggest piece that we've got going was last year and this year was the Supreme Extreme Adoption. Last week on RFD TV, we aired a 1-hour special that was supported by Veterison, which is a wonderful sponsor of ours. They did kind of an infomercial, and we had a 1-hour special in front of 6 million household viewers about the quality of the adoptions and the emotional connection that these trainers have with their horses. The Supreme Extreme is where last year we had 110 horses, 8 horses. This year we're going to have 210 horses that have been filmed. You can go and see them right now online, all 210 of them. And the folks have to apply. In our office at this moment, we have 180 adoption applicants that BLM is helping us process. Those folks will get a bidding number. They adopt the horse through the televised adoption. You have to call up and bid and adopt the horse. Then that set of horses is eligible for $200,000 in prize money. And it's been hugely successful, and we really look forward to it this September, where the competition will be there. Next slide, please. The core that Sally was talking about is our trainer incentive program. That's where folks that have the skill set and the facilities that meet with BLM's requirements can pick up 1 to 4 wild horses as if an adoption, work with that horse, find an adopter. We reimburse them $700 per horse when they finalize the adoption. That, as you see, we reached over our goal last year, was to get 600 horses adopted through the funding that we received with BLM. We did 622, and our goal this year is 600, of course, based on what the available funds are going to be. Since 2007, 1,800 horses have been moved through that program. I want you to know that these dollars don't go in our pockets. They go in the trainers' pockets. Through prize money and reimbursed expenses, we have moved last year, put nearly $1 million back into the agriculture industry. This is absolutely an economic stimulus for the horse industry and the people that are involved with us, and we're very proud of that fact. Next, please. The youth program has been the most exciting component of what we're doing. We are matching young people, 18 and over, they have to be 10 years old, and with a yearling Mustang to gentle it. Don't let the saddle fool you. We do not ride them. We don't ride any of our horses until they're 3 years old. But these kids come and get these horses prepared. They either adopt them themselves, where we pay the adoption fee, or they put them up for adoption by public auction, and it is spectacular what they accomplish with these horses. We've moved over 400 yearlings through our youth and yearling program. Next slide, please. The cool thing that we got through our BLM friends introduced us to the environmental education component of the BLM, not horse money. This is educational money. And through that, we crafted the youth employment program. We employed 150 kids last year at $8 an hour, and they were working for you and for these horses, spreading the word about the value and the quality of the horses and how to maintain those horses in the wild. And they get educated about land protection, and they become our ambassadors. It's an incredible program. We've requested funding for this coming fiscal year. Next slide, please. Vanna. We also used the synergy of a lot of the Western lifestyle industry. We hosted through this funding 3 camps held at the National Cowboy Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City, the National Cowgirl Hall of Fame in Fort Worth, Texas, and the Panhandle Plains Museum in Amarillo. We had over 50 kids come and be campers, where our kids that we paid to employ were the counselors. They had to learn about the curriculum, they had to learn about the history of the wild horse, and they had to share that with the campers. It was hugely successful, and these organizations, plus several other major museums, want us back this year. Next, please. To answer your question, Renee, we had about $80,000 left over that we didn't spend last year in the wild horse adoption awareness campaign. So we've recrafted that money and worked with our partners. We've got Pat Pirelli, Clinton Anderson, Chris Cox, and Craig Cameron all have given us footage. We're crafting a DVD that's going to be distributed to BLM sources and outsourcing, and anyone in the audience that will attend and be a spokesperson for adoption. What these gentlemen did was they simply went to a BLM facility, assessed the horses, showed how it was safe to load that horse, bring it home, and get it gentle to put a halter on it. The number one thing that stops people from adopting a wild horse is they're afraid they can't catch it. So this DVD focuses strictly on the ability to safely get that horse home and get it to where you can handle it. Those of you that may not know these gentlemen, that's like looking at Robert Redford and, you know, George Strait up on there to horse people. I mean, they are nuts for these guys, and we are blessed that they are our partners in that. They understand the value and the market of this upcoming Mustang component that we've got happening. Okay. Part of this adoption awareness is we partnered with the American Competitive Trail Horse Association. Those of you that ride have heard about ACTHA. They're making a very big push. They have allowed us, June 4th, is Ride for the Mustangs. We right now have 24 rides in 21 states, and all of the funds that are generated from those rides go to the Mustang Heritage Foundation Adoption Program. It's a huge piece for us, and it hasn't closed yet. So if anyone would like to host a ride to help adoption, it's a big component of both ACTHA and the Mustang Heritage Foundation, all geared around adoption awareness. Our major adoption awareness component is Demand the Brand. That freeze mark is our Nike swoosh, and we wear it proudly. We really focus on educating the public about the value of these horses and identifying them through the freeze mark. It is, again, a big piece of, you can see, you can't read there, but all of the events that we've got going around the June Adoption Awareness event. Next slide. We're really proud of our social networking and our technology that we use to communicate with. As you guys know, print ads are expensive, and it's very difficult for us to do that, but we are hot chili mundo when it comes to Facebook. Right now, we're really proud that 42% of those 13,000 people that are on our Facebook page are under 35 years old, and 80% of them are female, Ginger. Woohoo! We know who's running the horse industry. So we continue to craft methods to be able to engage those people through contests and prizes and keep them informed about what's going on in the wild horse business. Next, sir. We're so proud of the, you know, we're like the commercial that you see for MasterCard, right? It's like cost of the ticket, $35, whatever, experience priceless. Well, with us, we get measured by the BLM by adoption numbers, and that's okay. We're proud of the numbers of horses that we get adopted. But you can't put a price tag on the fact that we had articles in the New York Times, positive articles, my BLM friends, and the New York Times in the Texas Monthly, which is one of the most premier magazines down in the Southwest, and had a major film company come and follow 8 of our trainers across the country and created a documentary called Wild Horse Wild Ride. You can go to wildhorsewildride.com. They were in the Palm Springs Film Festival, which is right under the Golden Globes and those kinds of things, and they were elected as one of the festival favorites. They've been accepted at the Toronto Festival, at the Dallas Festival. This is big stuff, big stuff. And hopefully, I'm not much knowledgeable in the film industry, but my understanding is film festivals, lots of distribution companies see that, and then hopefully we're going to get some traction and really be able to get this on a network. I want you to know that we do everything humanly possible to get people to come to our events. Everything humanly possible. 2 years ago, I had this idea that I know that horse people like dogs, so I really assume that dog people like horses. So we partnered with the Humane Society of North Texas and created the Mutt Makeover at our big Fort Worth event. It was successful in 2009. In 2010, last year, we adopted 67 dogs at that event, and the ASPCA named the Extreme Mutt Makeover as one of their top 10 adoption programs in the country. Now, we'll do any dadgum thing to get people to our events. Now, we will not make over husbands. We will make over anything else that you get a chance that might put a butt in a seat to see a Mustang, because that's what it's all about.
Really?
The next, no offense, boys. The last piece, which you have in front of you, is a synopsis that we carried to Washington, D.C., and are going to try to work with some of our leaders in Congress to educate them about the component of our program and how important it is. Last year, many of our BLM friends were like, well, how many can you do? Well, how many do you think you can do? They asked Paula, they asked John. Well, we kind of got back with our staff and we crafted a proposal to them, which you have in your packets, was 4,000 adoptions in 365 days, and by God, we can do it. And it takes money to do it, but what you have to look at and what you have to challenge our BLM friends with is really reinventing the wheel. The adoption programs, the satellite adoption programs, particularly those in the eastern states, are far too able to take horses into adoption scenarios and only adopt a very small percentage of them. For example, Milwaukee carried 37 head of horses from Milwaukee to Florida with all their rigs, with all their gear, and with all their staff, and got 11 head adopted. That is not good business, particularly when diesel is going to $4.09 a gallon, is what my friend John said. So that's crazy business, and you can't do it that way. Reallocate those funds to us. Let us help you craft ways that you can start to create adoptions at the facilities. You know, there's ways that you can bring in gentling into your BLM facilities, and those things can happen. If a BLM requests to do a satellite, they should use social networking. They should plan and plot and mandate that you get 25 head or more adopted before you let that truck hit the road. I mean, that's just good business. We're excited about creating a youth scholarship program. Turn that money around and let us use that money to take in and give kids scholarships that work with yearling horses. And they hold that money, or BLM can hold it until that child is in an accredited college or technical school. Then you can give that money. That's what scholarship programs are based on with all kinds of entities. You hold that money, you can use that money, and then distribute it to those kids when they age into college. Expansive efforts in social networking and technology-based communication. You've got to be hip and you've got to be hot, because we are after Gen Ys and Millennium kids. Let me tell you, boomers, y'all in here, there's some of you wonderful young people in here, but us boomers, we're turning 65 years old. 8,000 of us are turning 65 years old every day. Now, I'm not there yet, but once I get on the other side of that, I'm not sure I'm going to climb on a wild horse. So what we need to do is focus on our youth, get them involved, get them engaged, get them in the history, get them in land use, get them in herd management, get them in families, educate them, and outreach to all facets of this. We all have to work together on this. This is not an us and them. This is get our children thinking right. So I'm out of air. I'm out of time. If you'll let us work with our friends at the BLM, which they are, and my friends over here keep me humble, this guy over here. So I want to thank you for the opportunity, my friend Sally and everyone, and we're very excited about it. We really are in a jam right now. Dean knows that the funding, because of the continuing resolution, we only have half of our funds. But because of the management of our trustees, we're going to dive into our reserves. We're going to spend all of our reserves. We're going to be broke at the end of the year, but we're going to make the commitments that we've made to our trainers and to our horses. Because you cannot look in the eye of either that man or woman that made a commitment to train that horse for 100 days or that wonderful horse that's come around to be a partner. You can't tell them we can't do it anymore. You can't, and that's your job. So let us help you. Thank you.
Patty, I just have one couple. You were going to mention a little bit about the National Adoption Awareness.
I did. You did. Yes. That was the piece about the DVD is going to be distributed. The trail rides are all about that, the awareness. The Demand the Brand is the awareness campaign. And all that money is carried over from last year, so there's no new money in that.
Okay.
We've crafted it all that way.
Okay, thank you. I'll leave it at that.
I don't have a question, I have a comment. Could you imagine what you could do with a little enthusiasm?
Thank you very much, Patty. Yes.
I do have a question.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Patty? Are you guys working on the concept of virtual adoptions? We've talked about that about 4,000 times in the 6 years I've been on the board. And
we have a component on the website, but I'm pretty frank. When folks want to give money, they want to feed. Understand about it.
okay.
Which is a new piece. But involvement with corporate become very supportive, and virtual adoption is a good piece of contribution of a adoption, sending them Debbie's help horses with a certificate that they're helping. And we can't feed horses. We can help get them adopted.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, next item on the agenda is Barry Imler is going to give us an update on the Forest Service report, which is included in our books.
Okay. First, I'm back at this meeting after missing the last one with some mixed emotions. One, I'm happy to be here. I'm really happy to hear I think we need Roger in the room more often. I really like hearing all the extra talk about burros at this meeting. But I'm also a little discouraged after following Patty. I really think I just shut up and go back. Yeah. But I'm sure some of you folks will have some questions. Go through this fairly quickly, just summary of what is in your folder. As far as the interagency agreement, the transfer of funds between the Forest Service and the BLM to reimburse BLM for some of the support they give us for our program, we have been maintaining that. We've been, I believe last year was $1.75 million that we transferred. The agreement that was the vehicle for us transferring that money expired this past July. We're working right now to try to get a new interagency agreement established so we can continue with that process. As far as some of the statistics, we gathered and removed, we gathered 165 horses, 79 burros over the last year off Forest Service territories. Those are the ones that are strictly Forest Service. We have a few territories, what we call territory, what BLM calls a herd management area, that there's some overlap. I didn't try to account for those. I'm assuming that those were already included in their numbers as far as their presentation, their summary. We, of the 165 horses, 35 of those were released back. Part of those were treated, my understanding is approximately 26 of those were treated with PZP before they were released back. We adopted out over 80 of the horses, approximately 30 of the burros, which left us, we actually contributed to the short-term, long-term holding population by about 50 of each animal, 50 horses and 50 burros this past year. As far as plan gathers, gathers that I know of that the Forest Service personnel are looking at doing more or less by themselves without BLM support. We have 3 different gathers that we'll be doing primarily bait trapping. These are the same territories that we did most of our gathers from last year. Our wild horse and burro specialist, this has been more than an annual question from the board. The position has been filled, and an update to what I put in the written report. My understanding is Mr. Froley actually reported work last Monday, and he has already met with Dean and some of his folks to try to get some things moving as far as coordination. On litigation, there's been no real change since the last time we were before the board. Again, a clarification though, the 2 lawsuits, what's listed on here as being 2 lawsuits or potentially 2 lawsuits from the Stouts in Oregon. Actually 1 lawsuit. As I started going through the records the other day, it appears that they actually amended their initial complaint to include their ESA concerns regarding how we were operating on Murderers Creek. And that is, it's kind of a shotgun for us because we have such a small portion of the program, but I believe that covers everything that's in the written report and any additions or any changes.
Are you facing the same budget issues?
Yes and no. We are facing a constraint, the same as BLM. However, most of our folks have not spent the money that they had set aside for the gathers. We've also temporarily shut down because of foaling season. Our hope is that once we do see some kind of a CR to get us through the rest of the year, that we will be able to continue then with those gathers.
And do you anticipate the MOU to perceived positively?
I believe so. That was one of the last things Don Glenn and I worked on before he retired. We've got the basics lined out. Dean and I probably need to sit down and work out the details. There are some things there are some enhancements that need to happen compared to the last agreement. There were a lot of things. There were a lot of details in there as far as how we handled the changing in costs, and that agreement was written in 2005 before short-term holding became an issue or the costs were involved. So the reality is, based on the old agreement, we were reimbursing it BLM on the basis that every animal was going into long-term pastures and nothing was going into short-term.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Janet and then Renee.
Barry, for your procedures and processes that you follow, for example, gathers or adoptions, does the Forest Service have its own set, or do you follow this set that BLM has for gathers and adoptions and things like that?
I would say in general we follow the same procedures as far as the gathers. Most of the adoptions that we handle are actually handled by the Carson National Forest, and they try as much as possible not to gather at a rate faster than they can adopt out at the local corrals, either at the local ranger district or I believe they actually rent some corrals in Farmington, which is closer to the public than where their district office is.
Renee?
I would say that some of those also, a number of those animals also are adopted out through the BLM. What our folks can't adopt out on their own, we turn over to the BLM and they run through their adoption process.
Renee?
Okay. Murderers Creek and the ESA issues, what are those about?
It's dealing with possible destruction or harming of critical habitat for a listed species of fish.
Which fish?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I believe you're correct. It's bull trout.
Thank you.
We're actually being sued by multiple sides over riparian area over habitat conditions for that trout.
Thank you.
Boyd, did you have your hand up? Oh, okay. Any other questions, Barry? Thank you very much for a good update. And speaking of litigation, that is our next agenda item. We also have a summary of that in our books. And Carl is going to go through that.
I always try to make it a point that when we are sued for something, that I would really like BLM to be upheld. So when I work with my staff, I say, do a really good job. And I know all the managers try to do that. We try to do a really good job. So even though the public has the right to question us and look at us and potentially sue us, they've got that right. But we want to make sure that we do a good job so that as many times as possible we are upheld. I don't think there are slides associated with this. I just think we have the litigation report in the book, and for folks that don't have it now, you can get it online as soon as we upload all the materials, and so you'll be able to see these same things that I'll just discuss briefly. In California, In Defense of Animals versus Salazar, it was filed in July of 2010. The plaintiff, In Defense of Animals, brought suit seeking to enjoin BLM's gather of excess wild horses from the Twin Peaks HMA in northeastern California and challenged the legality of placing horses into long-term holding. We have completed that gather because the district court denied the request for an injunction. The plaintiffs appealed the denial to the Ninth Circuit Court, and the Ninth Circuit Court denied the plaintiff's request for emergency relief. Plaintiffs did not withdraw their appeal from the denial of the injunction. And on January 11th in 2011, the Ninth Circuit held oral argument on the appeal. The parties are waiting for a ruling by the Ninth Circuit. Meanwhile, the United States has filed a motion to dismiss this litigation as moot, and that motion is still pending.
What happens when you essentially go ahead and you completed the gather and there are motions for an injunction I mean, what happened, I mean, it's already a done deal. What happened?
And that's why the United States U.S. attorneys said this should be dismissed, but
Okay.
maybe they're looking to see whether or not appropriate procedure was followed, so next time they ask for an injunction, it would be different, I would only anticipate. In Colorado, Colorado Wild Horse and Burro Coalition versus Salazar. It was involving a proposed gather for West Douglas herd area. Plaintiffs filed a complaint and a motion for preliminary injunction and temporary restraining order, alleging the proposed gather of wild horses to reach an AML of 0 in the West Douglas herd area would violate the Wild and Free Roaming Horse and Burro Act, NEPA, FLPMA, and the Information Quality Act. The motion for preliminary injunction and temporary restraining order was denied due to the fact that BLM postponed the gather. There were a few other people that wanted to intervene in this case. White River Conservation District, Douglas Creek Conservation District, Colorado Association of Conservation Districts, Colorado Cattlemen's Association, Colorado Farm Bureau Federation, Public Lands Council, and 4 individuals moved to intervene in the case as defendant interveners aligned with BLM. A ruling on the motion to intervene is pending as a dispute over supplementation of the administrative record. BLM notified the court on February 21st that we were going to withdraw the gather plan. The parties are to confer and report to the court by yesterday on how the case will proceed, and I don't have an update on that.
Why'd you withdraw the gather plan?
Do you know?
They want to consider a comprehensive evaluation of several herd management areas. And
I'll tell you in a minute when I hear him, okay? They want to evaluate several herd management areas?
Yeah, and the whole West Douglas drainage considered as one big thing.
They want to look at the entire West Douglas drainage, look at several herd management areas together, and so they would postpone that particular gather. Habitat for Horses versus Salazar. This is the North Piance herd area gather. On October 7th, 2010, plaintiffs filed a complaint in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York that alleges BLM's proposed gather of excess wild horses within the North Piance herd area in Colorado violates the Wild and Free Roaming Horse and Burro Act, the National Environmental Policy Act, the Federal Land Policy and Management Act, and the Information Quality Act. The claims are very similar to those that we just talked about in Colorado. And on October 14th, plaintiffs filed a motion for preliminary injunction and a temporary restraining order with an additional request that the gather in the herd area be ceased immediately. After briefing and hearing, the court also denied the plaintiff's motion for a preliminary injunction and temporary restraining order. The court ruled that although they had established irreparable harm, plaintiffs had not demonstrated a likelihood of success on the merits. BLM motioned to dismiss this as being moot. It was filed on January 28th. Plaintiff's response was due March 4th. And then BLM's reply to that, to the plaintiff's response, is due next week on the 14th, so that's still being engaged. Another one in Colorado is Habitat for Horses versus Salazar. On December 15th, 2010, plaintiffs filed an appeal of the district court's denial of a preliminary injunction in Habitat for Horses versus Salazar. A case management conference was held on February 9th, 2011. Plaintiffs have indicated a willingness to withdraw their appeal. Negotiations on the conditions for withdrawal are ongoing. There was an Interior Board of Land Appeals decision, an appeal to IBLA of cancellation of private maintenance and care agreements for adopted wild horses. BLM essentially repossessed some horses on October 5th, and somebody has filed an appeal to the Interior Board of Land Appeals. In Montana, there is litigation to require the Forest Service to expand the Pryor Mountain herd management area, and that's pending mediation in the Ninth Circuit. That was a tongue slip, sorry. September 2009, the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia denied a temporary restraining order request to stop the Pryor gather. BLM proceeded with the gather and adopted or sold all of the excess wild horses that were gathered. The plaintiff filed an amended complaint concerning the gather, and while a ruling was pending, the case was reassigned to a different judge located in Ohio, although the case is still technically in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. I'm wondering if, I know this is, we're doing this report, you have the details, the audience does not have the details. Is it working for you for me to continue to read through these things? Or would you rather me hit the highlights of the name and the last sentence?
I think you can hit the highlights.
Okay. A plaintiff who had previously appealed prior Mountain Wild Horse Range Herd Management Area Plan subsequently filed a second amended complaint to the U.S. District Court for the 2009 gather. The gather was first amended complaint were dismissed as moot, but the second amended complaint was allowed by the U.S. District Court and is currently being argued. A decision for the use of fertility control was issued on January 11th this year. The decision would treat 70 to 80% of the mares per year by age class over the next 5 years. A petition for stay and appeal to IBLA was received from one individual and is pending a ruling. There endeth the litigation report, and I don't know that I have any particular answers to your documents. Oh my God.
Unfortunately.
Oh, sorry about that. Another page. Because in Nevada, Laura Lee versus Salazar was filed on July 9th, 2010. And the plaintiff, Laura Lee, filed a motion for a temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction on access to the Silver King herd management area so that she could observe wild horse gather operations. The district court issued an order denying the plaintiff's request for a temporary restraining order. Gather operations ended October 13th. The parties are waiting on a ruling and for a litigation schedule because the plaintiff requested a reconsideration of the court's denial of her requested temporary restraining order. 2 appeals of the Antelope HMA complex gather were filed with BLM. The appeals were forwarded to the Interior Board of Land Appeals and decisions are pending. In Oregon, you have heard about the Murderers Creek litigation. The reason I kind of jumped in there with my bull trout stuff is I used to work in Burns right next to Murderers Creek. The Burns District received an appeal of the Stinking Water Wild Horse Gather on July 27th, 2010 from Sherry Walsh. There was not a petition for a stay and the horses were gathered in mid-August. IBLA has not yet ruled on her appeal. The main points of her appeal centered on population estimates, genetics, herd viability, fertility control, and other things. And in Wyoming, BLM canceled an adopter's private maintenance and care agreement, and this was also appealed to the Interior Board of Land Appeals, and the case is pending. Am I done now? No more states after Wyoming? Okay.
Any questions? Thank you, Carl, for going through those.
You're welcome.
Okay. Robin? I don't have any questions. Yes, Jan.
We've never seen anything on here before regarding cancellation of private maintenance and care agreements. For what reasons would BLM go serve a decision for cancellation of maintenance and private care agreements?
Probably for multiple reasons, normally for improper care of a wild horse or burro, not heeding advisement and warning to change care practices. That's the most common reason we'd repossess a horse.
And Renee, I think the reason we're seeing it is because that individual or individuals appealed it.
Right.
So and is this the only case where it's been?
No, I think we did not report on these cases previously. We were
Okay.
focusing on the big lawsuits in federal court.
Okay.
But these kind of cases are occurring all the time through BLM's compliance and efforts to ensure.
So they normally appeal them?
Not always, but sometimes.
Right, I didn't think, that's more the exception to the rule, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd say it's an exception. Usually people acknowledge they're unable to care for the horse or don't have the skills and just relinquish the horse back to us. No appeal or challenge.